Who are you?
My name is Kenny Gorman. I'm one of the 3 founders of ObjectRocket.
Yeah, and what is that?
So ObjectRocket is a premium database as a service based on popular MongoDB. We're the only service that's inherently sharded, highly available, and extremely fast. So performance has been a concern of ours since day one.
Yeah, and I'm writing a book called Age of Context, which is about 5 things: wearable computers, sensors, big data, which you fit into,
right,
and social networking data that's going up. Twitter's going to have a billion tweet day soon,
right,
and location data that also is doubling every N months.
That's right. Yeah.
And you put those together and you get to do some fun things.
That's right.
Data computation, database, big data, small data, medium data.
Yeah.
All sorts of data.
yeah, and I think the 3 of us since day one, we've been working together for darn near a decade or more, and we started early on at PayPal and eBay and these other large websites, I think that we started really think about big data back then and lived through a lot of scalability challenges through those companies.
Yeah.
And these days, obviously, it's just exploding. And so about a year ago, we decided to found ObjectRocket based on MongoDB. It's obviously a very good database for developers, very easy, very natural way to create applications, as well as great adoption and great community. So we had experience with Mongo. I was one of the earlier guys that did an enterprise implementation of Mongo, and we were excited about it, so that's what we decided to do.
Yeah, why is Mongo getting so much attention in the big data world?
It's a good question.
What does it do that MySQL can't do?
Right. So it's a good question. I think, a couple things about Mongo that are really important. The first is the document model. The JSON-like structures of MongoDB really match a lot of developer models these days, a lot of developer patterns. It's just natural, it's fun, it's easy. Yeah. So you can create really compelling applications quickly, not worry about your data model, not have sort of impedance mismatch between hard, rigid schema and a relational database, not have to use a heavy-duty object relational mapper, and just sort of write naturally, use the data structures naturally. And Mongo's great for that. I think the other thing is community. The community around MongoDB is super strong. Developers are swapping ideas, how to build drivers, how to work with drivers, how to write apps, and it's exciting. So I speak at a bunch of conferences, and I've never seen folks be this excited about a technology, and just kind of gobbling up all the details and trying to learn about it and write apps and have fun. So.
Yeah, I bet if we talked to Evan Williams in 2006, he would never have guessed that he would have billion tweet days coming.
That's right.
And which shows sort of what's happening with data, right? We're generating more and more data every day.
Right.
And now that we have sensors coming online, our cars are going to generate more data.
That's
our
right.
watches are going to generate more data.
That's
our
right.
thermostats are going to generate more data.
I was just playing around with the GM API. It's very cool.
And that's just starting. I interviewed the GM guys just a week ago, and that thing does nothing compared to where they're going to take it.
That's right, yeah.
They say that a car can really generate gigabytes of data just driving down every few minutes. It can generate, because there's already so many sensors on the car and so many computers and all that. So,
right.
So, how does a Mongo? Well, tell me how you prepare for this next world coming at us, where we're just going to have more and more data, more and more scalability problems because we're going to have more and more users.
It's a good question. So, when we started building ObjectRocket, one of the things that we did that's quite a bit different than other solutions is we decided to build the cloud from scratch. Yeah. Essentially build our own infrastructure and then put MongoDB on top of that and then write software around that to add value to the top of Mongo. The important thing I think there is that we were in control of every bit of the stack. So not just layering ourselves on some other provider. And that gives us a bunch of advantages. Performance advantages, availability advantages, and support advantages. So one of the cool things about our application is we're inherently sharded, so we're horizontally scalable. And MongoDB provides us as part of its software stack, and we extend it. So we have agents that run in the background and detect when a particular customer needs to scale, and it makes that happen and adds shards on demand. So that's one way that we really are ready for this sort of scalability challenge. As customers are growing, their data sets are growing, they don't really need to worry about how their architecture is built behind the scenes. They don't need to be a DBA or have a team of DBAs. They can just sort of let us handle that component and scale horizontally. Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So you're a cloud system? I just put my credit card in and rent database space on
That's right. So
ObjectRocket?
Right. So we have a plan, what's called a plan.
Yeah.
You sign up. We're strategically located very close to Amazon data centers, so we're about 1 or 2 milliseconds away. We have links into their backbone, so you don't pay input and output charges. And yeah, you plop in your credit card, and we have small plans for people doing POCs or people just playing around.
How about Rackspace data centers?
That's right. I think Rackspace.
We have a few people on the Rackspace.
That's right.
Cloud.
Rackspace is on the roadmap, so that's coming. Folks can just start small and grow to multi-terabyte systems.
Okay, so that lets you reduce your latency latency and build really fast systems. Can you give me a sense of what a developer would notice compared to your competitors? Competitive systems, because there's lots of database choices. I'm sure Oracle come calling and MySQL guys.
Right. So a couple of things. I think if someone's writing an application, the easy thing, if let's say they're on Amazon or Rackspace and they want to go ahead and use ObjectRocket, they can just change their connect string to us and we become their default database provider. There's other choices out there. I think those other choices are generally layered on other people's clouds. So there's performance issues, there may be reliability issues. Since we've built the cloud, the stack from the bottom up, we're in charge of everything. And so when a customer calls and has a problem or whatever, we can send the guy out there. We can put our hands on the hard drives. It's not just a blinky light on somebody else's dashboard that we can say, well, sorry, other guy's down and there's nothing you can do about it. So we really care about support from that standpoint. So that's a key thing. The other thing is just overall performance. Our system is all SSD. There's no spinning disk whatsoever. We've done a bunch of tweaks to both Mongo and Linux to make it extremely fast. So they'll see a performance boost, they'll see the easy scalability that I talked about, and they'll get the support that comes along with our package.
That's really interesting. How many servers do you guys have?
We have a bunch. I was saying the other day, we were writing some text around SSDs, SSDs. I've never seen this many SSDs in one place before, right? Like unbox. We use commodity gear. So we had to unbox everything and kind of put it together. It took a while. So
there's some startups that are coming out with SSD-based storage for data centers, like Skyera is one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them Pure, and there's other guys. We use commodity SSDs, to be honest with you. We just felt like the cost element was really important and control element from that standpoint. So we use all commodity gear and kind of scale in that way.
But this is a really interesting trend in data centers that 2 years ago, I never heard of somebody building an extensive system all on SSD.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's just pure SSD all the way through, and especially with MongoDB. MongoDB really loves to be on that fast disk, and that just helps the customer experience at the end of the day be super fast.
Yeah. What else do we need to know about this world? Because it's changing every day. It seems like every 3 weeks somebody else comes out with a new database system or a new graph database or new.
I think there's a couple important things. People talk about MongoDB and they talk about scalability or whatever. I think the important thing to think about with Mongo, the important takeaway, is just the document model. It's easy to use. Find a provider that makes it easy to use. It doesn't make you think about all the details, and that's really the key there. I think the other thing is to really choose your tools wisely. I've been around doing database stuff for a long time, and it used to be that we just were on Oracle or Sybase or that was pretty much it.
SQL Server or something.
IBM DB2, but they were all very similar in their design, and they just had different quirks about them. But today there's so many more choices, and I think that what that really does is you hear these things on the internet. Well, so and so database didn't work out for me, or so and so database sucks, or whatever. A lot of times it's sort of like you need to do your research and use the right tool for the job. Yeah. And MongoDB does a lot of things great, but not everything. And I think MySQL and Postgres, everybody has their own sort of sweet spot.
Can you explain what it does well and what it doesn't do well? What kinds of things would you say I'd still stay with MySQL or stay with Oracle?
So I think Mongo is really good at sort of social apps, rich content media type applications, things where you may not know the data structure ahead of time. Back in the day, people used to store a lot of just data in blobs in Oracle, and those kind of use cases now make a lot of sense to move into the JSON-like data structures that are in Mongo, XML workloads, things that are XML DB, those kind of things serialize very nicely to the Mongo workloads. But it's not great at things like transactions. It's not great at sort of the core, like you don't want to run your back-end financial system on it. Oracle applications and things like that don't really work so well on it. So those things I think really still work really well in the relational world. And Mongo's pretty good because it's got a nice cross-section of flexibility. It does sorts, it does groups, it has secondary indexes. It has a lot of features that MySQL and other relational databases have while still having that document model. So it's not really a super narrow use case like maybe a Cassandra or other various data stores are.
Yeah. If I'm building something like, let's say I was at General Motors and I was thinking about OnStar, with tens of millions, hundreds of millions of cars out there, and maybe even more if I extend it to, cell phones and stuff. Is your system more expensive because it's all SSD based, and then do I start thinking about other ways to save cost on like things that aren't being used as often, or?
Right. So I think our system, what we've tried to do is because we own the whole stack, we're not paying other people, we're paying their margins, frankly. Yeah. So we've been in control of our cost structure, and I think that makes us very competitive cost-wise, especially when you consider performance. So from a value standpoint, I think folks will see that we're a leader in that area. I also think that anytime you're consuming APIs or using JSON structures coming from APIs, like you were mentioning the General Motors use case, that works great with Mongo. Those kinds of things, easy to consume those APIs, easy to jam them in a database, easy to query them later and make reports. So the use case of like the Volt stats and these GM API kind of use cases, ObjectRocket fits great for those things.
Yeah. Are you seeing any changes in the kinds of applications that are coming along? I mean, now that we have lots of sensors on us, around us, soon on our Google Glasses, right?
Right.
And there's things like Nest thermostats that are kicking out data.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that changing the kind of workloads you're seeing people running? And
we are seeing, I mean, it's a good question.
And does it change the architectures that people need to think about with building our databases? It's not quite a bank ATM card,
That's a really good question.
It's not like what was hot in the 1990s, right?
Right. So that's a good question. So we see a couple of new and interesting workloads. We see the sort of the mobile workload, and I think a lot of people are seeing that, right? So location-based services, API-based, phone services. A lot of those kind of things are really rocking right now. But also, you were talking about the streaming data, sort of telemetry data, those things too. And I think our service works really nicely there. And the reason why is, in a sharded or horizontally scalable system, if you set it up correctly, you can basically really get a lot of parallel write capacity. So folks can ingest a lot of data concurrently, and each one of our shards is rated to like 20,000 inserts per second in Mongo, and about 60,000.
So it'd probably keep up with the Twitter firehouse?
Yeah. I think we should be so lucky. But that's kind of what we're designing around, is really that sort of high throughput, high write. So with the sensor networks, thermostats or things like that would be great use cases. Set it up correctly so you're engaging all your shards, and you can get a lot of parallel throughput.
Very cool. Any last things that a developer should think about in this new world that we're heading into, big data, and how are you able to do any computation on the data on your system?
So there's analytics. There's analytics packages that are coming out that are wrapping around MongoDB. There's also an internal analytics framework that's reasonable and getting better. But I think folks should think about using the right tool for the job, like I mentioned earlier, and really plan out your schema, plan out your data model, test locally, and then deploy on a proper cloud provider. And obviously, ObjectRocket can help with that.
Very cool. Where do we learn more about it?
www.objectrocket.com.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.